Is my speaker on? Yes, I think so. Thank you very much for the invitation. As you can see, I'm not Oceane Bala, and I'm not French. She's a colleague of mine. She's in the program. For a couple of reasons, she could not make it. So I'm stepping in. I have a lot on my mind, and only 15 minutes, so I think I'll just get to it. First of all, I want to just give you a heads up on a very nice magazine, which is in your bag that you received. It's also at our stand. It's very hot off the press, I think on Saturday. And it contains, I would say, a small update or a big update on the LNG fuel industry. It contains information on technology, on drivers, on infrastructure. There are some technical articles, etc. So it's a good bedtime read. You won't fall asleep though. So, but it's a nice document. It will be updated regularly as we move forward in the coming years. Okay, I want to start off with a couple of big questions as I see them this year in the LNG fuel industry. LNG pricing, that's a major question. A lot of the owners are asking themselves, what will the relevant price be for my trade, my vessel? It's difficult for them to get to know the answer. They get different answers depending on who they ask. Another important point is that there are new entrants in the supply of LNG that have not supplied LNG as bunker fuel before. They are asking themselves, how should I price this commodity? So they don't really know what the price mechanisms are, because obviously there aren't that many suppliers today. We have some here today, maybe Axel will touch upon it. But it's a lot of uncertainty around the pricing and how does it really work. Obviously the LNG availability is a big question. It has improved significantly. We see several new developments and there is a lot of talk, but still, what is the real expansion of bunkering locations? What's only a rumor? There's a lot of press releases, a lot of intentions, but what's real on the availability side globally? The new sulfur fuels is also something that is a big hot topic this year. A lot of new fuels are being talked about. Some oil majors are launching new fuels. Some smaller, I would say, oil companies with maybe one refinery are also launching new fuels in regional or intended for regional trades. What's that fuel's performance? What's the quality? What will be the price? How much fuel will be available? And the engine makers are obviously looking at what will be the impact on the engines of using new fuels. And then, of course, what will happen after the 1st of January? Except for the fact that there will be new regulations on sulfur. How will this be enforced? What will be the implication of not being in compliance? There will be fines, we know, but obviously, how often will a ship owner be scrutinized whether they are complying with this or not? These are big questions for the ship owners. They're asking themselves, how should I comply and what will be the regime I need to comply with? And I also want to highlight there is a big attitude change. I think there's a lot of positivity. There is a lot of people talking about LNG as fuel globally now. I've recently been to Houston on a big conference. It's a massive amount of stakeholders there, talking about marine use, mining, use for onshore oil and gas fields, rail, probably a slower uptake, but still. So it's a lot of positivity in the industry, and that's very, very nice to see. This is yet another way of depicting the LNG or small-scale value chain. there is a number of stakeholders. My only point with this slide is to highlight the fact that the more you know about the total value chain, the different stakeholders involved, the different regulatory regimes that are very different from region to region globally, the different drivers and risks that the different stakeholders are experiencing, the more you know about it, the bigger the chance is that you can actually take advantage of this value chain. Whether you are a ship owner or a supplier or equipment maker, you need to understand this picture and the different drivers for the different stakeholders. A few words on the technology. I promised to give you an update on the LNG fuel fleet, but I want to talk a little bit about technology and a little bit about the supply as well. The engine concepts are all in use today for ship propulsion, the different gas-fueled engine concepts. We can see see if this works, yes. The pure gas and diesel combination is there big time on the existing fleet that is on the water today, but it's the dual fuel engines that are taking the bigger portion of the market share in the order book. Today the engines are not considered as a major risk. It's not a technology risk per se with a gas engine. It's some inherent risk in all engine concepts, of course, and it needs to be looked at. But it's not viewed upon as a showstopper for LNG fueled shipping. We see all the power ranges, or at least most of the power ranges, are available. We have the dual fuel and pure gas engines. The high pressure, low pressure, 2-stroke, 4-stroke, and the methane slip, which has been talked about extensively over the past, I would say, 3-4 years, seems like being handled well by the engine makers. So that challenge is reducing a lot compared to a year and 2 years ago. Fuel tank concepts. There is a surge in fuel tank developments around the world. Different tank types, A, B, and C tank types. There are new materials being looked at. There are land-based or companies working on land-based equipment, trying to grab a part of the market share they think will be there and marinize their technology. Some of the very well-established tank manufacturers are trying to downsize their existing tanks into becoming applicable for bunker vessels and also applicable potentially for fuel tanks on board LNG-fueled ships. We work with many of these companies these days, and it's exciting to see how much creativity there is. Some of these are on the drawing board, and some of these are already being tested at shipyards. Brief update on the infrastructure as well. This is the global picture. We see some hotspots in the US, Canada, the lakes, around the Gulf of Mexico. Here we have exciting projects being confirmed, and more of them are being developed. Obviously, around this neck of the woods, there is a lot of activity, and it has been for a very long time. We see time and again new confirmed projects being introduced. The Middle East and Southeast Asia. I was also in China, I think 3 weeks ago. I had some very interesting meetings with some of the shipyards and also with the authorities in Beijing. And they are confirming that they are now sort of, I would call it, restarting their ambitions on LNG as fuel in China. They have several pilot projects with a 3-year time horizon with a specific port or specific ports, specific owners, specific trades and ships that will be converted, and also new building coming up. Specific suppliers are in place for the LNG. So there's a lot happening most likely in China as well. And Singapore, of course, a month or 2 ago confirmed again that they will have bunkering by 2020. The European picture, we see slightly different drivers. Up here it's obviously the ECA, which is the main driver. In the center, it's regulation, but it's also demand-driven, especially in the rivers. And here it's more, I would say, supply-driven. And what we also see is that the break bulk, if we get more break bulk of the LNG at the import terminals, we will definitely see more bunkering vessels. It will be easier to implement local storage facilities in the different regions. It's also easier for the suppliers to get hold of then smaller volumes, because it can be very difficult to actually get hold of small volumes at the import terminals. Extremely difficult. A lot of the LNG is actually sold and locked on long-term contracts. So it can be very expensive to get small volumes out of a import terminal. Bunkering vessels. I keep forgetting I have a nice screen here. Bunkering vessels are definitely key to moving this forward. We see numerous developments. There is one in operation today out of Stockholm, as you know, from last year's conference. There is one, as far as we know, only one confirmed order. But there are several ship owners. We're talking to very many of these ship owners, and there has to be many more. And also charterers, meaning suppliers, looking into new concepts of bunker vessels. So this will definitely be something we believe will come in the very short future, more orders. In addition, there are companies that are looking into new buildings that are also at the same time looking into converting smaller LNG tankers to enable bunkering much faster. So a small, fairly simple conversion will enable LNG bunkering in a couple of months, fairly short yard stay, and then you could have a potential bunker vessel. We do believe we will see more of that in 2015. But of course, one important point here, what about the delta on the tank pressures of the bunkering vessel and the receiving vessel? That's something that needs to be thought carefully about. You could have a high pressure and an atmospheric tank pressure configuration, and then you need to think about boil off and return of gas and keeping the pressure low at the atmospheric tank. Okay, then to the real topic. This is the existing fleet. We have now 52 LNG-fueled vessels. This is 2 more than last time I presented this, a month ago. One point, obviously, is from 12, 13, this started to become more international. This was more or less a Norwegian game before. It's becoming more international. In 2013, we had 10 vessels reaching the market. 2014 so far, I think we have 7, but there are 17 more planned for delivery in 2014. So most likely there will be a rush of deliveries from shipyards later this year. This is the order book. That's the first page, and that's the next page. We have 78 LNG fuel vessels now in order as of yesterday. I think the obvious point is it's getting more diverse, the ship types. The operation is obviously getting more international. This is no more a pure Norwegian game. The European, especially Northern Europe, trades, the Baltic trades, and also in the US and Americas, Canada as well, is picking up. With that said, there is interesting development in Southeast Asia also. Yes, here we see the combined fleet. If you combine the existing vessels that are sailing today with the order book, we have 130 confirmed LNG-fueled ships. We also see on this slide, I mean, the dark blue ones are the ships in operation. The green ones are the order book. And on top here you have the LNG-ready ships. This is a concept we launched in 2013 in DNV GL, and that has gained a lot of interest and momentum, and you see These are the ships that are not LNG fueled, but they are ready to be converted into an LNG fueled ship at a later stage, obviously reducing the risk, commercial risk for the ship owner when ordering the vessel. Dual fuel is picking up. That's a comment to make here. I mentioned it earlier, the dual fueled engines. The tanks are getting bigger. It's not only ECA trade specific sizes, but the ship owners are adding some volume to be able to trade them further. It could be a lot of different reasons for that. Second-hand value is one. But this is obviously going a little bit slower than we in DNV GL anticipated a couple of years back. I think 4 years back we anticipated 1,000 vessels, LNG fueled vessels by 2020. That will now, I would say, call it be the optimistic scenario. Maybe 600-700 vessels is more realistic, but that does not mean that we will hit 2020 with a slow pace. I think in 2020 we will have a massive order book, and we will reach 1,000 ships a year or two after that. So if some of you are a little bit tired about the slow development, we understand that, but we strongly believe that this is here to come, and that the speed will pick up. One thing we in DNV GL are doing these days is to establish a public-private partnership in Norway, which is about a green coastal shipping program. It will be a fairly large project. Hopefully it will kick off next year. It's a big roundtable discussion in February with 3 of the Norwegian ministers present that we are arranging, and hopefully this will be a massive project that will have a lot to say at least about on the Scandinavian stakeholders in LNG shipping. Hopefully this will gain a lot of traction and be part of pushing this industry forward. Just one slide on the different ship segments. You see the order book is the light blue, and the ships in operation are the dark ones. It's getting more diverse. There are some big chunks who are sort of taking the lead: car and passenger ferries, PSVs, and container ships. But we do see, especially with the discussions we're having with owners, that the other segments as well are looking heavily into this. The challenge for the owners is, of course, to justify the business case. They struggle with the capex of the equipment, and they struggle with, at least, with all the uncertainty with respect to the OPEX and the fuel price. And then that's the LNG pricing is the biggest uncertainty. So they're sort of taking the safe way out and not opting for LNG. That's my final slide. Just a few words on the DNV GL involvement in the LNG as fuel history. I won't go through all of this. We're launching a new class notation next year. That was my key point there. Many of the market players are thinking that there is still a commercial risk, a big commercial risk about opting for LNG as fuel. I think it's definitely a risk not considering LNG as fuel. I mean, if you are a ship owner and not at least making a conscious choice about the fuel options in your new vessels, I'm very surprised. I mean, these vessels will be trading for 25 years. You have a second-hand value option you need to consider. Maybe your charter is only 5 years, yes, but the new buyer will need to consider this. So at least make a conscious decision about the fuel you are opting for. The fuel availability, prices, and the regulations in 25 years from now is difficult to predict. I'm not saying that LNG as fuel is the choice for all trades and all vessels, but I'm saying make a conscious decision about the fuel options. So I think that's my final word today. Hopefully I didn't run too much over time. And thank you very much for your attention. Please ask questions in the breaks, during the dinner, etc. I have some very capable colleagues with me in the audience as well. Thank you very much.